You are speaking to yourself right now, even if you are completely silent. There is an inner voice that never stops, a quiet stream of signals moving beneath your thoughts. Jacobo Grinberg discovered that this hidden voice is not harmless and not imaginary. It is information, and information shapes reality in real time, whether you are aware of it or not. Most people believe reality responds to action, effort, and visible behavior. Grinberg found something far more subtle. Reality responds first to internal coherence. It responds to the way awareness speaks to itself before anything happens. Your inner dialogue is not just personal psychology. It is a signal sent into a sensitive field of consciousness. Through years of research into the brain, perception, and ancient knowledge systems, Grinberg showed that the brain does not create reality. It translates it. What you repeatedly say to yourself programs that translation. This means manifestation begins long before you try to change anything in the outer world. It begins in the tone, rhythm, and repetition of your inner speech. Most people unknowingly distort reality through their self-talk. They repeat internal phrases that fragment the field, then wonder why life feels resistant. They call this being realistic. Grinberg called it noise. The field does not respond to force. It responds to order. In this video, you will learn how your inner voice becomes a stabilizing or destabilizing signal, why emotional tone matters more than positive words, and why forced affirmations often fail. You will also discover a lesser-known insight from Grinberg's work. Silence between inner statements allows reality to reorganize itself faster than constant effort. If you watch until the end, you will understand how to observe your inner voice without controlling it, how coherence replaces struggle, and why calm, truthful inner language changes what you experience. This is not about belief or motivation, it is about perception. Welcome to Awaken Synchronicity. If this perspective resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and stay with us. The moment you change how you speak to yourself, the field begins to listen. Before we talk about the way you speak to yourself, it is important to understand how Jacobo Grinberg viewed reality itself. He did not see the world as solid, fixed, or separate from awareness. According to his research, reality is a sensitive field of information, constantly responding to subtle internal signals. What you experience as the physical world is not independent of you. It is shaped by the quality of perception interacting with that field. Grinberg explained that this field is not passive, it is responsive. It adjusts moment by moment to the state of consciousness engaging with it. This means reality is not waiting for your actions to change before it reacts. Long before behavior appears, the field is already receiving instructions from within. These instructions are not only thoughts, they are patterns of attention, expectation, and inner language. Most people assume that thinking something once has power. Grinberg found that repetition and coherence matter far more. The field responds to stable signals, not scattered ones. When awareness sends mixed messages, reality appears chaotic. When awareness becomes ordered, the field organizes itself around that order. This is why effort alone often fails. Action without coherence sends weak signals. Another lesser-known aspect of Grinberg's work is that the field responds to how awareness speaks to itself, not what it demands from the outside world. Inner speech carries structure. It carries rhythm and emotional tone. The field interprets this as a blueprint. Calm inner language creates smooth patterns in perception. Harsh or rushed inner language creates interference. Grinberg emphasized that awareness is always communicating, even when you believe you are doing nothing. The field listens continuously. It does not distinguish between conscious intention and unconscious self-talk. Both shape the same informational space. This is why changing behavior without changing inner communication often leads to the same results repeating. The field remains unchanged because the signal remains the same. Understanding reality as a field shifts responsibility inward, not as pressure, but as precision. It reveals that manifestation is not about forcing outcomes, it is about aligning the internal signal so the field can respond without resistance. Thinking and inner speech are often treated as the same thing, but Jacobo Grinberg made a clear distinction between them. Thinking is scattered. It jumps from one idea to another, it reacts to memory, environment, and habit. Inner speech is different. It has structure. It has direction. It forms sentences inside you that repeat with subtle consistency. These repeated phrases are not random mental noise, they are patterns. And patterns are readable to the field of reality. Grinberg observed that the field does not respond to a single thought or an occasional emotion. It responds to repetition. When the same internal phrases run again and again, the field interprets them as stable instructions. This is why certain experiences repeat in people's lives without obvious cause. The repetition is not outside, it is inside. The field mirrors the most consistent signal it receives. This is also why simply trying to think positively rarely changes anything. Random positive thoughts cannot override a stable pattern of inner speech. The field ignores inconsistency. It aligns with coherence. Inner speech becomes powerful only when it repeats with emotional alignment. Without that, thinking remains noise. Grinberg's work challenges the common belief that the brain creates reality. He proposed something far more radical. The brain is a translator. It receives information from the field and converts it into perception. What you see, feel, and experience is the result of this translation process. Reality itself exists as information before it becomes experience. Your self-talk programs this translator. The language you use internally sets the parameters of interpretation. When inner speech is rigid, fearful, or fragmented, the brain translates the field in a way that confirms those signals. When inner speech becomes calm and ordered, perception shifts accordingly. Nothing external needs to change first. The translation changes, and reality appears different. This explains why two people can live in the same environment, yet experience completely different realities. The field is the same, the translator is not, and the translator is shaped by inner language more than by circumstances. Change the language, and the decoding changes automatically. Words spoken out loud have limited power. They appear then disappear into the air. Inner words behave differently. They loop, they echo, they repeat in the background of awareness. These loops are far more influential than spoken declarations because they remain active long after the moment passes. Grinberg emphasized that these loops either create coherence or distortion. Coherence stabilizes reality. It allows the field to organize itself smoothly around perception. Distortion creates resistance. It introduces contradictions into the signal. When inner speech says one thing while emotion says another, the field receives interference. The result is delay, confusion, or repetition of unwanted experiences. This is why effort often feels heavy. The inner loop does not match the desired outcome. The field responds to the loop, not the effort. Spoken motivation fades quickly, but inner speech continues uninterrupted. That continuity gives it power. Perception itself is shaped by this internal language. You do not experience reality directly. According to Grinberg, perception is filtered. This filter is built from expectation, and expectation is formed through self-talk. What you repeatedly tell yourself becomes what you expect. What you expect determines what you notice. This is subtle but profound. Two people can witness the same event and extract completely different meanings from it. Their expectations guide their attention. Attention selects reality. Self-talk quietly trains attention, deciding what stands out and what remains invisible. Over time, this selection becomes your world. Grinberg noted that this process happens automatically. You are not choosing it consciously most of the time. Inner speech runs beneath awareness, shaping expectation without permission. That is why observation is more powerful than control. The moment you notice the pattern, it begins to loosen. Another critical element in Grinberg's work is emotional charge. The field does not respond to words alone. It responds to emotional tone. The same sentence spoken internally with calm carries a completely different signal than one spoken with tension or fear. Emotion gives weight to language. It tells the field how seriously to take the message. Calm inner speech creates order. It smooths perception. It reduces noise in the translation process. Harsh inner speech creates turbulence. It fragments attention. It sends conflicting signals into the field. The result is resistance, delay, or instability in experience. This is why forcing positive language often backfires. The words may sound correct, but the emotional charge contradicts them. The field reads the emotion, not the sentence. Grinberg warned that exaggeration creates distortion. Truthful, gentle inner language carries more coherence than dramatic affirmations. Noise in the inner dialogue does not block manifestation. It slows it. It scatters the signal. The field waits for clarity. When emotional tone stabilizes, the signal becomes readable. Reality adjusts without force. Grinberg believed that awareness is always communicating, even when you are resting, even when you are distracted. Inner speech never fully stops. The field never stops listening. There is no pause button on perception. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. When inner language becomes softer, perception reorganizes. When perception reorganizes, experience follows. Not because reality has changed, but because the translation has become clearer. The world appears different because the filter has changed. This process is not mystical, it is structural. It operates the same way every time. The field responds to stable signals. Inner speech provides those signals. Emotional tone amplifies them. Expectation directs attention. Attention shapes reality as it is experienced. Grinberg's work reveals that manifestation is not a moment, it is a condition. It is the result of sustained internal communication. When that communication becomes coherent, reality reflects it naturally. No force is required. No struggle is needed. Only awareness of what is already being said inside. The most powerful shift begins when inner speech slows down. When it becomes simpler, when emotional tone softens. At that point, the translator recalibrates. Perception clears, and the field responds. Not dramatically, but precisely. Identity is not something you consciously create with effort. According to Jacobo Grinberg, it emerges quietly, almost imperceptibly, through repetition. You become what you repeatedly tell yourself, not in a single dramatic moment, but through countless subtle patterns of inner speech. These patterns accumulate over time and stabilize into signals that the field reads as coherent identity. It is this signal, rather than a sudden decision or external label, that informs how reality mirrors your existence. Each phrase you repeat, each emotional tone you carry internally, contributes to the structure of your perceived self. The field does not differentiate between what you intend consciously and what runs persistently beneath awareness. The repetition of inner speech anchors identity in a tangible, though invisible way, creating a blueprint for perception to follow. Most people try to speed up manifestation by forcing positive talk, but Grinberg warned against this approach. The field is highly sensitive to contradiction. When your inner language says one thing but your emotion or belief says another, the resulting conflict weakens coherence. A repeated pattern of misaligned speech and feeling creates tension in the field, which translates into delayed or distorted experiences. Forced affirmations, no matter how enthusiastic or well-intended, often fall into this trap. They attempt to impose change externally or consciously without aligning the deeper, repeated signals. Grinberg emphasized that the key is alignment, not effort. The field responds to truth, not theatrical insistence. Calm, truthful inner language carries far more weight than exaggerated positivity. Authentic repetition sends a clear, stable signal. Forced declarations create interference. Manifestation follows coherence, not struggle, and the subtle honesty of inner speech builds a stronger foundation than artificial effort ever could. Silence plays a critical role in this process. The most powerful self-talk is minimal, short, clear, and precise statements, repeated internally, carry more influence than long, elaborate affirmations. After these statements, silence is essential. This pause is not emptiness. It is the moment the field reorganizes itself around the coherent signal. Silence allows repetition to be registered fully without interference from ongoing internal chatter. It gives the field space to align with the signal and adjust perception accordingly. Grinberg noted that many people fail to manifest desired outcomes because they fill the mind with constant noise, layering one affirmation over another, never giving the field a chance to read the pattern clearly. Minimal, focused statements followed by attentive silence create clarity and allow identity signals to stabilize. Inner speech should be understood not as a command to reality, but as permission. You are not ordering the field to comply with your wishes. That approach generates tension and resistance because it contradicts the natural responsiveness of awareness. Instead, gentle, calm language gives permission for manifestation to occur. Harsh, demanding speech withdraws that permission, introducing resistance into the process. The field responds naturally to the subtle invitation embedded in coherent inner speech, not to pressure or coercion. Manifestation arises when your internal dialogue aligns with calm expectation, repeated patterns, and an emotional tone that supports order. Repetition reinforces identity. Minimal, truthful statements create clarity. Silence allows integration, and gentle, permissive language allows the field to respond fully. Together, these elements create the conditions for reality to mirror coherence. Grinberg's insight reveals that identity, manifestation, and perception are not separate processes. They are intertwined through the continuous interaction of inner speech, repetition, and emotional tone. Identity emerges quietly from repeated phrases and patterns, forming a stable signal that the field recognizes. Forcing positivity or effort without alignment disrupts coherence and slows manifestation. Silence provides the essential space for these signals to register, while permission-based inner speech ensures the field is invited rather than coerced to respond. The subtle combination of repetition, emotional alignment, and silence creates the conditions in which reality can reorganize around the inner signals you send. Inner speech is, therefore, both the architect and the builder of identity. Every repetition, every calm statement, and every silent pause contributes to the shaping of the field and, by extension, the experiences that emerge. Grinberg's work emphasizes that awareness does not require effortful control to influence reality. It requires consistent, coherent communication with the field. This communication is gentle, intentional, and observant. Each loop of inner speech reinforces identity, tunes perception, and sets the groundwork for manifestation. Over time, these repeated signals stabilize into the patterns that the field responds to naturally, without force or strain. This process also explains why people often feel stuck, despite repeated effort. It is not a lack of desire, visualization, or action that blocks manifestation. It is misalignment in the repetition of inner language. Statements spoken with tension, impatience, or contradiction send weak or conflicting signals. The field cannot organize around noise. Only when inner speech is calm, truthful, and followed by silence does the field read the pattern accurately. Manifestation follows the signal of identity that has been quietly constructed over time, not temporary bursts of motivation. Repetition, minimalism, and permission create a rhythm that guides perception. Each calm inner phrase, repeated consistently, stabilizes identity and prepares the field for manifestation. Silence integrates the signal, allowing perception to adjust without resistance. By understanding that inner speech is both a blueprint and an invitation, one sees that reality is not being forced into place, but is responding naturally to coherent communication from awareness. Grinberg also highlighted that the emotional tone of inner speech is inseparable from the words themselves. Calm, consistent, and permissive language carries authority without effort. Harsh, demanding, or contradictory speech weakens coherence and delays the field's response. The combination of repetition, emotional alignment, minimalism, and permission forms the most effective structure for influencing reality. Over time, this becomes a self-reinforcing loop. Coherent identity signals strengthen perception, perception stabilizes experience, and experience reinforces inner speech, further consolidating identity and alignment. In practical terms, identity is formed through repetition, not occasional insight. Manifestation requires alignment, not struggle. Silence allows integration. Permission allows the field to respond. Inner speech, when repeated calmly and truthfully, structures perception and experience in a coherent, sustainable way. Grinberg's work demonstrates that reality is sensitive to these subtle patterns. Each thought, phrase, and pause carries weight, and each repetition slowly builds the framework through which consciousness shapes the world. Every moment of self-talk is an opportunity to reinforce identity and coherence. Every pause, every gentle statement, and every emotionally aligned repetition contributes to the field's response. By observing this process and practicing minimal, truthful, and permission-based inner speech, identity stabilizes naturally and manifestation follows without effort. The field reflects coherence, and the repetition of inner speech becomes the most precise instrument of transformation. Over time, these practices reveal that control is an illusion and alignment is the operative principle. The field is not manipulated, it responds. Identity emerges as a stabilized pattern in response to repeated inner speech, and manifestation arises from the alignment of repetition, emotional tone, silence, and permission. Grinberg's insights make it clear that reality is sensitive, responsive, and shaped continuously by the subtle signals of inner speech. Each repeated phrase, each pause, and each calm emotional tone builds a framework within which consciousness and reality interact. Identity, self-talk, and manifestation are interconnected. Coherent inner speech strengthens identity. Identity stabilizes perception. Stabilized perception allows manifestation. Manifestation confirms the signal, creating a feedback loop that amplifies coherence over time. This feedback loop is the foundation of Grinberg's approach. Inner speech is not about thinking, wishing, or forcing outcomes. It is about constructing repeated, calm, and truthful signals that the field can recognize and respond to. Silence after these signals ensures that the field integrates them. Gentle, permissive language invites reality to align. Over time, the repetition of this structured, emotionally aligned inner speech stabilizes identity and perception, allowing manifestation to unfold naturally without resistance, effort, or contradiction. In this way, Jacobo Grinberg's work reveals the profound importance of inner speech. It is the vehicle through which identity forms, perception organizes, and manifestation occurs. Repetition is the architect. Calm emotional tone is the engineer. Silence is the space in which the structure solidifies. Permission is the mechanism that allows the field to respond. Together, they create a coherent, self-reinforcing system through which consciousness shapes reality. The subtlety of this process cannot be overstated. Small shifts in inner speech, in emotional tone, and in the willingness to allow rather than demand create profound changes over time. Each repetition sends a stabilizing signal into the field. Each pause integrates that signal. Each emotionally aligned phrase reinforces identity. Each gentle permission allows the field to respond. In this way, the continuous practice of mindful, truthful inner speech becomes the most reliable method for shaping perception and manifesting coherent experiences. Identity is not a fixed trait, but a dynamic pattern emerging from repeated communication with the field. Manifestation does not follow effort, but follows alignment. The combination of repetition, calm emotional tone, minimalism, silence and permission forms a precise and natural mechanism through which consciousness structures reality. Grinberg's research demonstrates that reality is sensitive, responsive, and continually shaped by these subtle inner signals. Each inner phrase, each pause, each alignment of feeling and intention sends a clear, coherent signal that the field reads and responds to. The power of inner speech lies not in volume or force, but in consistency, calm, and truthfulness. Repetition stabilizes identity. Silence allows integration. Permission invites response. Emotional tone determines coherence. Together, these elements create a reliable framework through which consciousness communicates with the field, shaping perception and manifestation. Grinberg's insights show that reality is always listening, always responding, and always reflecting the patterns we embed through subtle, persistent, and coherent inner speech. Over time, this understanding transforms how we approach ourselves and the world. Manifestation becomes a natural outcome of inner alignment, rather than a struggle to control external circumstances. Identity consolidates through repeated, calm and truthful self-talk. Perception becomes more precise, and the field responds in kind. Each moment of inner speech is an opportunity to reinforce coherence, strengthen identity, and invite manifestation. Grinberg's work reveals that the key to shaping reality is not effort, force, or external action, but the careful, repetitive, and emotionally aligned dialogue we maintain with ourselves. Through this continuous process, the internal patterns we repeat become the framework upon which experience builds. Identity stabilizes, expectation sharpens, perception becomes orderly. Manifestation unfolds naturally. Each repetition of calm, truthful inner speech strengthens the signal, while silence ensures it is integrated. Permission ensures the field is receptive. Over time, the subtle, consistent signals of inner speech create profound shifts in perception and experience. By observing and refining inner speech, one can cultivate identity, coherence, and manifestation simultaneously. Repetition, calmness, minimalism, silence, and permission form the pillars of this process. Grinberg's research demonstrates that reality does not require effort to change. It requires clarity, coherence, and alignment within the field. Each phrase, pause, and emotionally aligned repetition is a direct line of communication between consciousness and the responsive field, shaping identity, perception, and manifestation in a precise, natural, and self-reinforcing way. The continuous practice of mindful inner speech transforms the patterns that guide experience. Identity solidifies through repetition, perception organizes through coherent signals, and manifestation follows naturally without struggle. Silence allows integration, and permission invites response. Emotional tone determines the clarity and strength of the signal. Together, these elements form a complete system, revealing the subtle but powerful mechanisms Jacobo Grinberg discovered for influencing reality through the quiet, persistent, and aligned patterns of inner speech. Reality is listening all the time, not to your wishes, not to what you hope will happen, but to how you speak to yourself in every quiet moment. Your inner voice carries more power than any action, any effort, any spoken word. Soft, calm, truthful speech creates coherence. Coherence stabilizes your perception and reshapes the field around you. For the next 24 hours, simply observe your inner voice, notice it without judgment, without correction. Let awareness be the only guide. Pay attention to the patterns, the tone, and the repetitions. This is where transformation begins, not through force, but through quiet observation and alignment. If this perspective resonates with you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Awaken Synchronicity. Stay with us as we continue exploring how consciousness shapes reality and how the smallest shifts in your inner speech can create profound changes in the world you experience.